This video is meant to honor Akira Toriyama. This is basically going to be a video of me talking about all the stuff that was or has been published within the English market that's basically from him. So that's why this video is going to be super long. It's basically a retrospective of all the content that I've talked about Akira Toriyama wise on this channel, all compiled into one video. And basically, it kind of stems even as far as 2016 when it comes to me talking about Akira Toriyama's work. So there are going to be timestamps in the description down below, and this video isn't meant for you to just sit down and watch the whole thing. You can watch this in small little increments or put this on the background while you're doing something else, just so you can have something playing in the background. You can actually listen to me basically honor Akira Toriyama and the works that he's put out. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the show. And it's going to be a manga review for Dragon Ball. Yes, I said it, Dragon Ball. You guys are probably thinking this is probably one of the most overhyped mangas of all time, and it's not. Because there's nothing wrong with Dragon Ball. It's completely fantastic. Now, if you say that about Dragon Ball Z, I can understand why you say that, but you also need to shut your mouth. So, this is the thing, right? We are going to be talking about Dragon Ball today, and obviously you guys know that this series is created by Akira Toriyama, the GOAT himself. The manga godfather, as I like to call him, because, come on, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, they fathered Shonen in. Come on, man. What better transformation have you seen in the Shonen Jump series besides Super Saiyan? Oh, I'm waiting for you to give me an answer. Exactly, and this series started in 1984. Before we were born. In fact, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z both ended before a lot of us was born as well. It's older than me. That's crazy. That's a crazy thought to even think about. So obviously, I gotta give my praises to this manga because honestly, like I said at the beginning, it's perfect to me. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm gonna tell you why I think it's such a great manga series for what it is. Now, I'm not gonna say it has the best of character writing or the deepest characterization or great motivations for why characters do certain things. No. This manga started off as a comedy manga with martial arts in it. No, I'm not gonna put it on the same level of something like Berserk or Goodnight Punpun or anything like that. It's Dragon Ball. It's Dragon Ball. You read it, you have fun with it, and you see some great moments from some of these characters. But before we actually get into the review, go ahead and do me a favor and like the video if you haven't already, and hit the subscribe button. That way you know whenever I come out with newer and doper content. And go ahead and follow me on all my other social media platforms. All my links will be in the description down below. So, let's talk about Dragon Ball, baby. And as usual, when it comes to these manga reviews, I will be putting the timestamp down below so that way you can skip to whatever part you want to hear, or if you like want to hear one part, then later on come back to the video, hear another part. All that will be timestamped when it comes to plot, characters, pros and cons, and my final conclusion or my final verdict for what I feel about the series. So let's go ahead and start off with the plot. Now, this story starts off with Goku, who is an orphan young boy who lives in the mountains on his own. His life is changed forever one day when a tech-savvy girl named Bulma bumps into him looking for a Dragon Ball that's in his possession. A Dragon Ball is one out of 7 mystical orbs that grants the summoner any wish that they desire. So, with Bulma needing muscle and Goku ready to see what the world has, these two set out on many adventures to search for the Dragon Balls. And honestly, that premise is so simple, but yet it creates for so many entertaining moments, so many entertaining arcs within the series. I see nothing wrong with it. Dragon Ball is Dragon Ball, and to me, Dragon Ball is a great adventure manga for what it is. Like, to me, it doesn't really falter in what it does because it does everything so nicely, so greatly. Like, it's impeccable how great this manga is. I'm sorry, I gotta praise it. And obviously, when it comes to a Shonen Jump title, it is going to have different arcs in it. So let me go ahead and talk about the arcs briefly, but I'm not gonna really do spoilers because what is out there to spoil about Dragon Ball? You know what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and talk about some of the arcs that are in Dragon Ball. First one up is the Emperor Pilaf saga, our first saga where we initially meet most of the recurring characters except for Krillin and Tien. These two characters are later introduced within other arcs of the series. Tien is more introduced in like the second half of Dragon Ball, but right after this arc, Krillin is actually introduced. Second, we have the Tournament saga where Goku meets Krillin and they both train under Master Roshi to enter the Tenkaichi Budokai, which is the world's strongest tournament, basically where 8 contestants fight and whoever wins is the strongest person on Earth. Third arc we have is the Red Ribbon Army arc, and in this arc, while Goku is off to find a Dragon Ball left by his grandpa, a sinister group also known as the Red Ribbon Army are also after the Dragon Balls. And this arc definitely was a shift compared to all the other previous arcs because this is the one arc we get where Goku is like the lead character and he's mostly on his own in this arc, and I really did enjoy that change of pace from all the other arcs. And then we have the last arc, which I consider the Demon King Piccolo / Piccolo Jr. saga. This is where the series takes a turn for the best. This series turns from a comedy-heavy manga with fighting featured to where the fighting takes over for the majority of the rest of the series. Goku has grown into a young adult along with his friends and now deemed the protector of the world. And honestly, this arc was such a great transition into something different for what Dragon Ball actually started out as, because a lot of it was hijinks and goofy things happening while Goku was like incredibly stronger than the average human, to where Goku has to actually protect Earth from a Demon King that wants to take over it and no one else could stop it but him. So I really do love that aspect of Goku being this boy who didn't even know what a girl was to eventually protecting Earth. It's just such a seamless progression of the character and of the story. I love it. But obviously, now that we got the plot of the way, we talked about the arcs, let's go ahead and talk about some of the characters. And the first character that we gotta talk about is Goku, a small 11-year-old boy who lives in the mountains by himself. He has a tail, has martial arts knowledge, and he's normally strong and pure. We follow this tale through the character of Goku and his numerous adventures to find the Dragon Balls. We all know who Goku is. We all know what he looks like. If you actually watch Dragon Ball, it's just funny to see where this goofball comes from. And I want to say that after actually rereading this story, Dragon Ball Super's iteration of Goku is more in line with the version of Goku that's actually from Dragon Ball. Literally all his character progression from Z, just imagine that all being erased and Goku going back into like the kitty-like state that he was in when it comes to actual Dragon Ball. So that's something I did notice. And there's a whole bunch of throwbacks in Dragon Ball Super to Dragon Ball. So I do like the fact that it does kind of pay homage to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Next character up we got is Bulma, a teenage genius who sets out for the Dragon Balls to find herself a boyfriend. She's the brains, but is missing the bronze until she one day meets Goku and enlists him on her adventure. Next character up is Oolong, a shape-shifting pig that's also a pervert. Between him and Master Roshi, this would be the character that I would be in this series, I'm not gonna lie. We also have Yamcha, villain turned ally. He is a desert bandit who knows how to use some martial arts. Krillin, a monk turned martial artist and Goku's best friend. Master Roshi, Goku and Krillin's mentor who was revered by everyone, but also known to be a huge pervert. Now Master Roshi, he's the GOAT. He's the OG nasty man. When I become an old man, I will be Master Roshi. I'm not gonna lie to you. And let's go ahead and talk about the antagonists, the villains of the story. First one up we got is the Pilaf gang, made up of 3 goofballs, Mai, Shu, and Pilaf, the leader. These 3 always get thwarted by our heroes, and you guys probably have seen them in Dragon Ball Super when they're kids, which I don't know how they became kids. That's such a weird thing from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Super. I don't even know when they got the Dragon Balls to get that eternal youth or whatever. But either way, they're kids in Dragon Ball Super. They're the little 3 people who always get in the hijinks. But there are, like I said, some references from Dragon Ball Super to Dragon Ball, so I do like that. We also have Commander Red, general of the Red Ribbon Army, and his goal is to collect the Dragon Balls to make his ultimate wish. We also have Demon King Piccolo, the one villain to actually thwart Goku and give a serious threat to the world just off of power alone. And lastly, we have Piccolo Jr., a reincarnation / clone of Demon King Piccolo with one goal, to defeat Goku and take over the world. And honestly, this is the Piccolo that you guys always known or have always seen within Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super. So Piccolo Jr. is Piccolo, but he's like a reincarnated version of Demon King Piccolo, who is also tied to Yami. It's a very confusing like line happening with that, but they do kind of explain it in the Dragon Ball Z anime, I remember that. And that's honestly about it for the characters. There are way more characters to actually be talked about, like Launch, who is a woman who is nice, pure, you know, is very dainty, until she sneezes and wants to be on savage mode. You get what I'm saying? Like, she's on savage time whenever she sneezes and she becomes the other version of her. Like, it's crazy. And this is one of the characters that I guess everybody says that Toriyama forgets in Dragon Ball Z, even though she really wouldn't serve a purpose in Dragon Ball Z. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, there are many more characters, also like Tien, who is also another martial artist from the opposing school of the actual Turtle School, which is the Crane School. And then we also have Chiaotzu, but do we really need to talk about them? Well, Tien is worth talking about. Chiaotzu, yeah. But that's about it for the characters. Let's go ahead and talk about my pros and my cons, and basically what I liked about the series and what I disliked. And I'm gonna let you guys know this right now. I am gonna be biased because I grew up on the series, but also when I read the series, I didn't have any problems. I found no bad things about Dragon Ball. So literally this is about to be me praising Dragon Ball the whole time. So I will be honest with you right now. So let's go ahead and get into the pros. The one thing I love about this series is that it's simple. Honestly, nowadays, we really don't see many stories where, you know, it's a good guy versus the bad guy. And the bad guy knows he's evil, and he acknowledges that he's evil. Well, in a lot of stories now, you know, the bad guy is supposed to be made relatable to us so we can understand the bad guy's motives. Well, in Dragon Ball Z, and especially in the times that Dragon Ball came out in, it was just good versus evil. Like, the villains would literally be like, ha ha ha, I want to take over the world because I'm evil. And I just love that. Like, I just love the fact that these characters could be evil just because they're evil. Like, you get what I'm saying? I don't need a super in-depth story about how this character was broken or abused as a child and he was stripped of all of his powers at the beginning of his living life. Like, I don't need all that. I don't. Just let the character be evil. Let him have his evil schemes. Let him be the big bad. That's all I need. And I honestly enjoy Dragon Ball for its simplicity in that. Another pro I have is that all the arcs actually nicely flow into each other. Like I said earlier about its transition from it being a gag manga to being a more fighting heavy martial arts manga, I think that the transition was seamlessly well when it comes to actually progressing through that. And also the arcs each go into each other and have like this interconnected story. Obviously it's going to all revolve around the Dragon Ball since the series is named Dragon Ball, but also it revolves around the character of Goku getting to learn the world and actually training to be a better martial artist, since Master Roshi did instill this thing to where you should never stop fighting. You should never just be settled to be the best here because there's always going to be somebody stronger than you. So this sets Goku on a path of becoming stronger, but also being good, and whenever evil comes among him, he has to thwart it. You get what I'm saying? So I do really love that about Dragon Ball, how everything just seamlessly flows into each other. Another pro I have is that the cast of characters, man, they play off each other well. Each one is distinct within their own personality, within their own character traits. I love every single one of these characters. Some of these characters got on my nerves only when it'd be like the Pilaf gang. Those are like the only characters that get on my nerves, but that's just because I hate them. I hated them when I was a kid, and I hate them as a grown adult. You get what I'm saying? I hate on the well, no, I don't hate on the Pilaf gang because I don't want to be like them. I just hate them. But they are enjoyable and they are funny when they are on screen. I will say that. They are enjoyable, but I just hate the Pilaf gang. They just, they get under my nerves. But that doesn't make them bad. They're supposed to be annoying. And, well, I just love it when Goku thwarts their plans and he doesn't even know that they're bad guys. That's the funniest part about it all. Fourth pro I have, and this is probably one of my favorite pros about the series, is that it's paneling and the artwork and the way that the action is depicted actually on the scene. Now with the paneling, Dragon Ball is not clunky. That's one thing I do like. Like, it's not like barraged with a whole bunch of words. It's not like Webster and Miriam are just throwing a whole bunch of words at you. No. It's pretty simple. The dialogue isn't too crazy to where it takes up a lot of the actual panel itself. And the panels actually flow seamlessly throughout each other, especially when it comes to the actual action being depicted. You can tell how Goku is kicking, where Goku transport, where Goku punches. You can tell all this stuff happening on the actual manga. And I think that this is the best manga that I've seen done that. Dragon Ball honestly has some of the best paneling in terms of action and depicting how a character is moving or how a character is fighting. I really did love it. There was no type of complication happening. And if you are a returning viewer of the channel, you guys know I hate sword fights in manga. Thank God there's not really any sword fights in this manga. There's like one, but besides that, you can literally tell what exactly is happening from panel to panel, and I love that. A lot of people really look over that fact, but I just think that makes the action way more enticing to actually read. Now we have another pro, and I know this one is going to be very subjective, but it's funny. Like, the comedy hits, man. Like, there was no dull moment where I was like, dang, that really didn't hit. Especially when you know the times that Dragon Ball came out in. The comedy hits for its age, and I think that it really aged well in terms of what happened. Especially the interactions that Goku has with a whole bunch of characters, especially the Pat Pat one. If you guys know what I'm talking about, the Pat Pat, you get what I'm saying? He doesn't do it that hard. I hope he doesn't do it that hard. But yeah, when Goku does the Pat Pat, I think that this causes for a hilarious moment, especially since he doesn't know what a girl is because he's only known guys since he only knows him and his actual grandpa. So meeting a girl and meeting other women in the world, it's hilarious, man. It's hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. Another pro I have, and this is on the long list of pros, the adventure is fun, man. Like, I just love following Goku and seeing what new things he was going to get into. I love seeing this world kind of evolve through Goku's eyes. Like, Goku learning new things about this world, traveling the world on Nimbus, sometimes by himself, sometimes with friends. And obviously, he learns a lot of lessons throughout the way. He makes a lot of friends throughout the way. So, I really did like this adventure of Goku just going from place to place, trying to find the Dragon Balls, like whether it be to revive somebody, to help find the Dragon Balls for someone else, or to get his 4-star Dragon Ball that his grandpa left him. Either way, Goku travels a lot, and if you kind of like a stagnant type of world, this might not be for you, but honestly, I just love the world that we actually got with Dragon Ball, since this does open up way more when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. The second to last pro I have, and I know I have a lot of pros, is that there are multiple arcs, and within these multiple arcs, and if you are a returning viewer of the channel, you guys know in my Shonen Jump series, especially the action ones, I love me a good training arc. And in this series, Goku trains a lot. I'm talking about with Master Roshi, with Karen, with Kami. I just loved all the training that we got with Goku. It's rare nowadays to really see great training arcs and actual great character growth and development that tests the character's willpower and things like that. I really love my training arcs, and Dragon Ball is one of the ones to do them really good. So thank you, Akira Toriyama, for making these great training arcs and for making all these great arcs that are all unique and different within each other, but they all flow seamlessly within the story of Goku and us actually growing with the character of Goku. I just really loved it, man. And the last pro that I have, especially when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, and Dragon Ball Z, is Master Roshi's lesson that he teaches to Goku. Now, we all know that Master Roshi is Goku's teacher, or his sensei, essentially. But Master Roshi essentially joins the first World Tournament when his disciples Krillin and Goku join, and he initially joins them to beat them. Now, you're probably thinking that's kind of cruel and kind of mean, but in the context of why he does this, he literally beats them so that way they won't win, and they won't just be satisfied with just hitting that one winning moment and just settling with that for the rest of their life. No. Master Roshi literally wants to teach them that there's always going to be somebody stronger than you, so you should always want to better yourself and get stronger, because you never know how strong the next opponent is going to be, and you never know someone's going to become stronger than you, and you always want to have a new challenge coming up in life. And I think that that's a great message that Master Roshi gives. Now, I know we all look at Master Roshi as a goofball pervert that we obviously all know him to be, but when it comes to actually him caring for his students, I really did enjoy that. I really did enjoy that aspect of basically him letting one of his students live with him. And he gave the option for another student to live with him, Goku. But Goku decides he wants to actually travel the world and see what it all has once Bulma opens his eyes up to the bigger world that he lives in. So for Goku to always want to train, to always want to be the best fighter, to always want to be better than the next opponent that he has to go to, and eventually becoming the protector of the Earth, I gotta say that that creates for a great moment and just creates for a great dynamic when it comes to Goku and his opponents, and just Goku's motto throughout all of life. And I don't know, man. Even though it's super simple, I really did like that. Because we already know a lot of times when it comes to these shonen series, the master kind of gets, surpassed by the pupil. But in this series, Master Roshi establishes that Goku is going to pass him one day, but he wants to knock him down as much as he can before that happens. That way it can instill in Goku, you need to strive for more. Strive to be stronger. Strive to always make yourself great, because you're not always going to be the strongest there is. And obviously, we definitely know that from Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. Now it's time to get to the final verdict. And overall, Dragon Ball is a fun time, and I couldn't imagine not starting my anime journey without this series. A lot of series now are inspired by it, and some don't have the success that Dragon Ball necessarily has, or the longevity that Dragon Ball has. So for that, the characters, the plot, I'm going to have to give Dragon Ball a 10 out of 10. Now, if you guys have been following the channel for a little while already, you will know that I just previously reviewed Dragon Ball, the whole manga in its entirety, in one 20-minute video. And honestly, I gotta say that I love Dragon Ball. I loved it as a kid, I love it as an adult, I loved it as a teenager. I love it all the way around. In fact, you gotta watch that review to see my score of Dragon Ball. But in today's video, we will be talking about Dragon Ball Z. Like I said, this will be a review series, so I will be touching on each of these arcs in their own video, so that way Dragon Ball Z wouldn't all be just talked about in one single video itself, because that Dragon Ball Z is kind of long. We got the Frieza saga, the Cell saga, and we got the Majin Buu saga. But you guys know within all these sagas, they have their own arcs. So I will be reviewing this hopefully by arcs, but when it comes to the Cell saga, and probably the Majin Buu saga, I'll probably be reviewing those. Yeah, I might keep reviewing them as arcs. Or sagas. I don't know. I kind of put the Android saga and Cell saga all the way together, and then the Majin Buu arc, I put it all together as well. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes on the channel. But in today's video, we will be talking about the Saiyan arc, which is the first arc that we get in Dragon Ball Z, and it's the first 51 chapters of Dragon Ball Z. So if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel yet. Follow me on all my other social media platforms. All my links will be in the description down below. So let's go ahead and talk about Dragon Ball Z. So let's go ahead and actually start with the plot. Now, this tale starts off with a strange alien with a tail like Goku landing on Earth one day 4 years after Goku's defeat of Piccolo Jr. This alien is in search of Kakarot, Goku's original name. Once this strange alien finds Goku, he reveals the truth of his origin. Goku is a Saiyan, a race of beings that are warriors or born with tails and overtake planets to sell them. This alien Raditz, who has revealed himself to be Goku's older brother, tries to enlist him to team up with the rest of the surviving Saiyans from their now dead home planet to rule the universe. Goku, being the good guy he is, denies him, but Raditz Raditz doesn't take no for an answer. He one-shots Goku and takes his 4-year-old son Gohan as a hostage to force Goku to team up with him. Goku has no choice but to team up with Piccolo to defeat Raditz. Goku and Piccolo end up winning the fight with Raditz, but it cost him one thing: Goku sacrificing his own life to take out Raditz. With Piccolo explaining to Raditz Goku won't stay dead for long, Raditz's scouter, a device that reads a being's power level and transmitter, picks up on his conversation of the Dragon Balls and communicates it to Nappa and Vegeta, the other two Saiyans that survived. With Nappa and Vegeta now on their way to Earth to gather the Dragon Balls, the Z Warriors, Piccolo, Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and Chaozu now must prepare for the battle to come within a year's time. Goku is also in the other world, a place where the dead go, to train with King Kai to learn more fighting techniques to use against the incoming Saiyans. And that is about it for the plot. You guys kind of already know where this goes, basically. This is probably one of the most overtold arcs in anime history. And I only say that because the video games always go over these arcs within the story mode. So I won't touch on the story too much. Obviously, I'll touch on this stuff in my pros and cons, but let's go ahead and start talking about the characters. Goku is the first character that we must talk about when it comes to this series. He is the character we've come to know and love from Dragon Ball, but 4 years later, now he has a kid named Gohan. Gohan is Goku's 4-year-old son. While Gohan is a half Saiyan, he has shown potential that surpasses even Goku's when he was a kid. And we have some returning characters like Piccolo, Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, Bulma, and way more characters to even list from the old series of Dragon Ball. Nothing much changes with these characters besides them getting older, so let's go ahead and talk about the villains. Raditz, older brother to Goku. He's our first enemy we face in this arc, but while trying to defeat him, Goku dies. We also have Nappa, Vegeta's right-hand man. He's a pretty stocky character, but follows Vegeta's every order and takes out most of the Z fighters, which is insane. This man Nappa humbled everybody. We thought that, most of the Z fighters were pretty powerful coming from Dragon Ball, but Nappa, he makes quick work of them, and I do enjoy that. That is what raised the stakes in this series, and I highly enjoyed that. But we'll talk about the pros later. We're talking about the characters right now, which the last character that we got to talk about is Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans. He has a plan that we don't know of yet, but is in dire need of the Dragon Balls. And honestly, when it comes to Vegeta from the Saiyan arc to the Frieza arc, this is my favorite iteration or favorite depiction of Vegeta, because this boy is in savage mode at all times. Oh my gosh. See, Dragon Ball Super, it might have poisoned y'all minds thinking that Vegeta was soft. No. Vegeta was coming for some heads and for some bodies in these arcs, but we'll talk about all the bodies that he catches in the Namek arc. But right now we're talking about the Saiyan arc, and that's about it for all the characters. There's not too many characters that get introduced in this arc, but honestly, the characters that are in this arc, they are strong characters within this arc, and man, it creates for a very enjoyable time. But besides all that, as usual, you guys know I gotta get into my pros and cons. What I liked about the series and what I did not like. And honestly, I only have one con about this when it comes to actually reading the manga version of this series. Now, you guys know from all my other videos, I watched Dragon Ball Z all my life. So there are some differences between the manga and the anime version. So this obviously will be touching on the manga version of what I liked and what I disliked for Dragon Ball Z. So let's go ahead and get into what I liked. First thing we gotta talk about is the paneling. In terms of art and action, both of those things are great, just like they were in Dragon Ball, but way more epic. Toriyama definitely betters his art and detail since Dragon Ball. My second pro has to be the explanation of Goku's origin. Now, this is explained really well and answers some questions from Dragon Ball, like him being abnormally strong, landing on Earth in a space pod, and having a tail, and etc. You guys know that Goku was definitely a unusual kid in Dragon Ball, so to see Dragon Ball Z kind of tell you why he was that unusual kid, I really did like that explanation for it. We also got to talk about the introduction of Gohan, seen as a crybaby but slowly evolves into a warrior from the training of Piccolo. Now this is insane. You're telling me the reason you was born was to kill Goku, and now you train in Goku's son. You training your arch enemy's son. Oh, Toriyama, what you doing to me? This is a masterpiece right here. And since this is relating to the pro from earlier, I gotta talk about Piccolo. I loved him. He changes for the better in this arc. He realizes that Gohan has a lot of potential as a fighter and takes the duty of training his sworn enemy's kid. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the stakes, because this is probably one of my favorite pros of this series, and it has to be that most of the Z Warriors die. In Dragon Ball, we really didn't see that many Z Warriors die. We saw probably like 1, 2, maybe 3 at most die, but with half of the squad falling down, oh my god. Especially Nappa taking them all out. Oh my god. It was excellent. And Piccolo even sacrifices himself to save Gohan, which in turn nullifies the Dragon Balls being able to be used. Now, when we was growing up, all we knew was that Piccolo dies, That means Kami dies, which means the Dragon Balls are nullified. We didn't know about Namek having Dragon Balls at this time, so when we saw that the Dragon Balls died and all these other characters are dying, we had no hope for these characters. We thought these characters were going to stay dead. So that meant a lot more when Goku had to come on the scene and save everybody. Oh my gosh. People be sleep on that. See, we have all the knowledge of Dragon Ball Z now, so people always say,
oh, there's really no stakes. You can just wish everything with the Dragon Balls.
No. When we was first getting this all revealed to us, we didn't know that there was Dragon Balls on Namek. We just knew that we only had the Dragon Balls that we had on Earth. So when Piccolo died and sacrificed himself, which was so brave, so selfless, when he sacrificed himself to save Gohan, his arch enemy's son, the Dragon Balls went away too. There was no way of wishing all these characters back. That's insane. I loved it. I love it. And let's also talk about the tone shift from Dragon Ball to Z, which is amazing in terms of changing everything once the time skip happens. Now, we all know that Dragon Ball started as a gag manga with some action in it. Just like, you know, series like a One Punch Man, maybe a Bobobo, things like that. But obviously, when it comes to the actual time skip, everything changes for the better. Now, some gags, they do get old every now and then, and I liked where Dragon Ball was because this was the exploration of Goku's character. But we have already had the exploration for Goku's character. Now it's time for this new age of warriors and these new age of villains to come through. Goku still being in the forefront, but him passing the torch to someone else new that we've been introduced to during this time skip, if you get what I'm saying. Y'all get what I'm saying. We're talking about Gohan of all people, come on. So yeah, when it comes to the actual tone of Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball is super goofy until it gets to like the Demon King Piccolo / Piccolo Jr. arc. But once it gets to Z, oh, it's just going down. It's going really down, oh my gosh. And I loved it. Like I said, at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, Nappa's catching bodies. That did not happen in Dragon Ball like that. So yeah, Toriyama, he definitely shifted gears when it came to actually making Dragon Ball Z, but I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is one of those things where it's on the scale of like, you know, like this is like great right here. Anything that can surpass Dragon Ball Z in my eyes is phenomenal. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, Dragon Ball Z will always be that standard for me. And we gotta talk about the last pro. And the last pro has to be the message between predestined fate, as I like to call it. The battle between Goku and Vegeta could be seen as one of the most early symbolic fights in Shonen. Goku was a man who was judged at birth that he would be weak and lesser than, which is why he was sent to Earth to take over it. But Vegeta, his enemy in this arc, has always been ahead, being the son / prince of King Vegeta and having a high power level since birth. These two were never destined to fight, and if they did, Vegeta would always be the winner on paper. But through sheer hard work and having a noble heart, Goku stands to be the victor of their fight, leaving Vegeta in shambles, figuratively and physically. I could go more in depth, but this is the usual trope we see in Shonen where it's the underdog versus the elite, with the underdog winning because the elite underestimated him instead of respecting him or expecting him to be on the same level. This topic might get turned into a video one day. I don't know though, so don't expect it. Don't hold your breath for it, but if it does come out, make sure y'all support that. You get me? You get me. And now that I talked about all my pros, it's time for the one con I have. Yes, I know there's one thing, and I'm nitpicking with this, even though I feel like this nitpick is kind of justified, and that has to be the heartfelt moments I got from the anime weren't really present compared to the manga counterpart. While this version does feel like a speedrun version of the series, a lot of moments that touched me when I was younger weren't really expounded on or focused on in the manga, but that's about it. Like I said, moments where it's Gohan and Piccolo like bonding, that's not really in the manga, or the sentimental talk that we have between Gohan and Piccolo when Piccolo is dying and Gohan is like telling Mr. Piccolo, you know, don't die, like, you know, my dad's gonna come save us. Like, that's like a page or two, and then it's kind of like, you know, the next thing. The death between Tien, Chiaotzu, and Yamcha, those deaths really aren't like held or focused on those moments. So that's the only con I have for that. But obviously I grew up with the anime, so I had those sentimental moments in my heart. But reading the manga, I didn't really feel it. Like, it kind of breezed over it, and I get it. Like, we want to get this over quick because Dragon Ball Z probably is a pretty big, huge story happening already. So I'm just, you know, the sad moments really weren't there. That's basically it. The sad moments really weren't there. But the one thing I do have to go back when it comes to the pros is that Goku doesn't take a long way on Snake Way. Thank God. I hated that in the anime. I like some of the fillers, but oh my gosh, when he was on Snake Way, I feel like that took forever. It felt like it took like months for him to meet King Kai. Oh my gosh. But now it is time for my final verdict. Overall, as the first half of the Frieza saga, I enjoyed the Saiyan arc. It sets the more serious and violent tone for what Dragon Ball Z is to become. The world building and introduction of some characters are done greatly, and the losses we do suffer in this arc are felt. While emotional moments I grew up with weren't really as heavy in the manga compared to the anime, I still enjoyed myself with this arc. So for that, I have to rate this arc a 9.5 out of 10. Oh yes sir. Oh yes sir. We about to do it to him today in this video. We about to do it to him. Y'all already saw the title. Y'all already know how I get down with this series. We are literally today reviewing the best, well, yeah, it is the best. My favorite arc, at least, of all manga history. Yes, sir. We are talking about the Frieza arc today. Oh. Nani? We in for it. We really in for it now. We will be reviewing Dragon Ball Z, the Frieza arc. Now, if you haven't checked out my Dragon Ball review or my Saiyan arc review video, go ahead and check it out. I'll leave links in the description down below. But in today's video, we will be reviewing the arc right after the Saiyan arc, which this is a part 2 of the whole review series for Dragon Ball Z that we will be rolling out on the channel. I will be reviewing all of Dragon Ball Z, but after this arc right here, I'll be reviewing them in Saga. So you should expect 2 to 3 more Dragon Ball Z review videos. So after this one, we'll be doing the Cell/Android saga, and then after that, we will be doing the Majin Buu saga. And I just think it creates for a better review overall. I feel like the Frieza saga was the one saga that I actually need to split up in 2, since I feel like the Saiyan saga just holds so much weight on its own, and the Namek saga, or the Namek portion of the Frieza saga, holds so much weight on its own that I had to separate those two into 2 different reviews. So that's why the Frieza saga is actually getting 2 reviews rather than the rest of the series actually getting a review for each saga itself. But like I said earlier in the video, this is my favorite saga/arc of all time in manga history, and I have a lot. Well, not a lot, because I don't want to make this video too long, but I have a good amount of stuff I want to talk about today in today's review. So I don't want to drag this any longer than it needs to be, because I really want to get into the meat and potatoes of this actual review. So let's go ahead and start off with the plot. After the slaughter of the Z Warriors, Tien, Chaozu, Yamcha, and Piccolo, Krillin, Gohan, and Bulma set out to find another set of Dragon Balls on the planet Namek, homeworld of the Namekians. Among this journey, Vegeta, who was spared by the remaining Z Warriors, set out for the Dragon Balls on planet Namek as well to attain his wish of immortality. But as usual, there is a stronger and more terrifying force already on Namek looking for the Dragon Balls as well. This force's name is Frieza, Emperor of the Galaxy and Destroyer of the Saiyan race/planet. Also, Goku is still in the hospital recovering from his fight with Vegeta and set to reconvene with the Z Warriors on planet Namek later. Question is though, will they be able to survive until then? And honestly, you guys already probably know how the Frieza arc goes. I know it's been memed a lot how Goku and Frieza fought for 5 minutes in the actual anime, but it took about probably like 30 episodes for it to finish. But don't worry, that's actually going to be one of the pros I have to touch on later on in the pros and cons section. But honestly, Dragon Ball Z is not meant to have a deep meaning. It's not. So don't expect for me to be like, oh, the intricacies of the world building, the villains. Oh man, the villains have such a great motive to. No. It's Dragon Ball Z. Take it for what it is. And if it implements something bad, then we judge it on that. But Dragon Ball Z generally has a pretty basic story, and it's really easy for you to actually digest and get into at any part of Dragon Ball Z. So that is also another pro, but we're not in the pros and cons section. But I will say that this arc is kind of divided within 3 parts. It's the part where we actually get to Namek, then it's the part of actually, you know, waiting for Goku to arrive, and then it's the part of Goku actually getting to Namek. So I'll divide that arc in 3 parts when it comes to the actual plot. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the characters. And as usual, we're going to have to list off some of the returning characters like Goku, Krillin, Gohan, Bulma, Vegeta, Piccolo, and King Kai. They're returning characters. So let's actually go ahead and talk about some of the new characters that was implemented into this arc. We have Zarbon and Dodoria, the left and right hand fighters on Frieza's side. The Ginyu Force, consisting of Captain Ginyu, Jace, Birder, Goldo, and Raccoon. This is a team of elite warriors who tend to Frieza's orders. We also have Frieza, the Emperor of the Universe and main antagonist of this arc. Frieza is the one person who seems undefeatable and even puts fear into Vegeta. This is my favorite villain of the whole Dragon Ball franchise. And we also have some Namekians like Dende, a young Namekian who was saved by by Gohan and Krillin and joins the Z Warriors to help defeat Frieza by being their healer and the Grand Elder Guru, the oldest surviving Namekian of the whole race. He is the guardian of this world, has much knowledge on the Namekian past and history, and is the creator of the Dragon Balls, meaning that if he dies, the Dragon Balls go with him. He basically serves kind of like the Kami figure of this world right here. And I gotta say that with Dragon Ball Z, especially with all these newer characters that we got, it leads for a good amount of world building that could happen in Dragon Ball Super later on. So I will leave that little tidbit right there, but I will say this arc right here is probably the best world building arc in terms of Dragon Ball, because this is where we actually get to start meeting new characters outside of the characters that we got on Earth. So let me go ahead and talk about my pros and cons, because we got about 10 pros and there's no cons, because honestly I think this is the perfect shonen arc in my opinion. My first pro, and probably the pro for the rest of the series, honestly, is that the paneling is great. The action, the direction, the choreography, everything with the paneling is great. I have no complaints with the paneling. My second pro is that this arc feels way shorter than that original anime version, with it clocking in at 84 chapters. You guys probably will never understand, if you are younger than me or aren't from the 90s, that Dragon Ball Z coming out week to week in this arc and rewatching it, it's probably like over 100 episodes. Oh, it was so gruesome to actually get through it. But the manga, oh my gosh, the pacing of the manga, and there's only 84 chapters. I ate that up within a week. I ate that up within a few days because it was just so entertaining. And even though I know the story, I know everything that happens in the Namek arc. I've seen it, played it in the game so many times, but it was still intriguing to really go through the story in the manga version of it. And obviously, I read it through the colored version of the manga, since that's what it's up to in North America. And oh, it was amazing. The third pro is that the storytelling is very tight. Everything has a purpose, and the lead up to the end is perfect. Fourth pro, the character designs. Outside of the Namekians, some of these characters really look great and unique. Let's just look at the whole Ginyu Force as an example. These are definitely all aliens from different sides of the universe that we actually inhabit in this world of Dragon Ball Z. And let's look at Frieza, Zarbon, Dodoria. We get all these different aliens, we get all these different designs. None of these characters look related, obviously, except for the Namekians, but we're on their home world, so they gotta look alike. Fifth pro, with a lot of these different alien slash characters, this opens up for a lot of opportunities for world building later on in the series, which we especially see in Dragon Ball Super. Sixth pro, Krillin and Gohan, they are in the forefront of this arc along with Vegeta, which create for a great way to tell the story and explore the new world we're on. We're obviously used to going through this story through Goku's eyes, and like I said, this arc and the last arc obviously are great breaths of fresh air, especially for a longer series like this, since Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z both were just Dragon Ball coming out in Japan. So to see the narrative kind of change through the eyes of like Gohan and Krillin, a character that we didn't really get too much time with in Dragon Ball, but to see him be a lot more useful in Dragon Ball Z, I really think Akira Toriyama was in his bag in this one. Next pro, and since we did speak a little bit about Vegeta, let's talk about it. He is the best he has ever been in this arc. From his ruthlessness, his purpose and fights, Vegeta is a standout character of this arc. I think Vegeta was he was really in his bag in this arc. This man was catching bodies. This man was on his purpose. He was on his grind. And I think we had the best emotional moment besides with Goku from Vegeta. It was great, man. It was fantastic. Another pro is that Frieza's character is perfectly depicted, with him being menacing and scary at the same time. Now, don't let the look fool you that, you know, he's just in that little potty, he can't do nothing like he's Professor X. No. That boy Frieza is respected for a reason. His feet don't touch that ground for a reason, you get what I'm saying? Everybody fears Frieza for a reason. He got his henchmen doing his dirty work for a reason. He's Frieza. Ninth pro, the lead up slash foreshadow of the Super Saiyan is perfect, especially when this moment happens in the third arc of this arc, and it feels very rewarding. I always tell people that when it comes to transformations, no other series gets it better than Dragon Ball Z when it comes to the Super Saiyan. Just the build up towards the Super Saiyan throughout this whole arc, where it's, you know, hinted at here and there, and Vegeta thinking that he hit it, but then when Goku hits it, we know as a reader, and Vegeta and everyone else knows that that's the Super Saiyan. And we all know that Goku deserves it, especially with all the stuff we've been through with him all before this arc. So the Super Saiyan is the best transformation in all of Shonen. And my last pro has to be that the last battle, unlike battles before, is under a time limit of 5 minutes, making Goku look like he has no chance of surviving. Let's be real, when we was watching this when we was younger, ain't no way Goku was escaping this. 5 minutes, and then Frieza could actually survive in the vacuum of space while Goku couldn't? Either way, Planet Namek was gonna blow up and Goku was gonna have to die somehow. Now, there's a BS reason of how he escaped, but we're not gonna talk about that in this video. But in this review right here, in this arc, in this saga, oh my god. I just loved it because no other villain that we had before, we had to fight on a time limit. So now the stakes are really up within an arc like this because we already know that Goku died before. And we can't really use the Earth Dragon Balls to bring him back because he's already been revived once. So seeing him die again, it would have been sad. But obviously he does succeed within leaving Namek in time because we have the Cell and Majin Buu arc. And I do also want to add that the intensity of this 5-minute battle between Goku and Frieza and this battle between literally raw strength, Akira Toriyama was in his bag in this arc. And you know, usually I'd give you the pros and the cons, but like I said earlier, I have no cons. I think that the Frieza saga is the perfect arc. Like, I can't name a better arc. Now, don't be trying to tell me, oh, you know, I'm gonna get the Saiyan arc where it has real character depictions and in-depth story. I don't know. No. What are you doing? No. Stop that. It's the perfect arc. What do you think is wrong with the Namek arc? And do not include the anime. Read the manga. And what do you think is wrong with the Namek arc? Exactly. You can't say nothing because there's nothing wrong. Obviously, you guys are probably going to fight me in the comments for that. You guys are going to fight me in the comments for my final verdict. Y'all going to fight me on whatever opinion I have on the series either way. But I don't care. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the final verdict. As usual, no cons with this arc because I believe this is when DBZ hits and finalizes its perfect arc. Overall, including this and the Saiyan arc together to create for the Frieza saga makes this a great saga overall. I enjoy every aspect, and as a grown adult, watching and enjoying shonen for most of my life, this is still the perfect shonen arc / saga to me. With Frieza as such a dynamic villain, Vegeta's character progression from the last arc to the finale of this one, the great utilization of Krillin, and the growth of Gohan as a warrior, and the best fight to date in shonen besides the Goku versus Vegeta fight, I'm gonna have to give this arc a 10 out of 10. I'll admit right here, I wasn't putting enough respect on the Android / Cell saga in Dragon Ball Z. And after reading it, I gotta put some respect on it. And after reading it, I gotta acknowledge that this could have been the best way to end the franchise, or at least, you know, stop it where it was and kind of just finish up everything that we've kind of built up towards throughout the whole series. We will be going over the Android / Cell saga of Dragon Ball Z, which consists of chapters 136 to chapters 226. And honestly, seeing that this saga was only 90 chapters, it was kind of surprising because, like I told you guys before in previous videos, I grew up with the anime for Dragon Ball Z, and some things are definitely dragged out. Now, some things are a little bit more epic in the anime, but some things are dragged out. And to see that this whole arc was only 90 chapters, and each chapter is about 13 to 15 pages, I was in there like swimwear, baby. We here to talk about the Cell saga. We here to talk about some androids. We here to talk about Gohan going Super Saiyan 2, one of the most epic transformations as well, alongside the first Super Saiyan appearing. But let's go ahead and start off with the plot. A teenager comes from the future named Trunks to warn Goku and friends that a group of androids are soon to come and destroy the world like they did his future. Strangely enough, when these androids are activated, Trunks notices something different about this timeline compared to his. There are more androids, and for some strange reason, they are on a killing spree like his future's androids. Dr. Gero, creator of the androids, who wants revenge on Goku for destroying the Red Ribbon Army, has a much sinister plan. Another android is on the loose, creating havoc and becoming more and more powerful by the second. Can our Z warriors destroy this mysterious android named Cell? And honestly, I gotta say that I gotta put a little respect on Toriyama's name when it comes to this plot, because it's definitely different in terms of structure and story writing when it comes to comparing this arc to like the Frieza arc or the Saiyan arc. So I will say that I am glad that we didn't get the same story beats over and over, because a lot of people complain that Dragon Ball Z has the same story beats over and over, but if you actually consume it yourself instead of going off of, you know, other people's opinions, then you will realize it's pretty different in terms of structure with each arc. And with the plot being out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the characters And the one character that we have to touch on first, which is obviously a fan favorite amongst all of you guys, has to be Trunks. A Saiyan from 20 years in the future. He comes back to the past to stop the androids from taking over and deliver Goku medicine for his heart disease that would later kill him. Trunks is also the son of Bulma and Vegeta, and let's be real, he's the drippiest Saiyan to date. We also have Dr. Gero, last surviving member of the Red Ribbon Army. He has turned himself into an android and created 5 others just to exact his revenge on Goku from what he did in Dragon Ball. Let's be real, Dr. Gero is literally the definition of petty. We also have Android 19, the right-hand android that travels with Dr. Gero but is easily defeated by Vegeta. And honestly, this is probably one of the best like one-shot kill type things that happens in Dragon Ball Z, especially when Vegeta pulls up. Oh, he was in his bag. You know he was in his bag. Do not cap. Android 17 and 18, 2 androids that were actually human but were cybernetically enhanced against their will by Dr. Gero. Android 16, a fully cybernetic android that travels with Android 17 and 18. And last character we must touch on is Cell, an android made by Dr. Gero that comes from the future to absorb 17 and 18 to achieve his perfect form. His sole purpose in life is to destroy Goku, but later on aims to be the strongest being in the universe, just wanting to terrorize people. And honestly, when I was reading that and I saw that, I just thought to myself, Cell is sick in the head. I will say that I got a new level of respect for Cell compared to when I initially thought like he was just only created to kill Goku and he only wanted to kill Goku, that's it, and destroy everything else. I didn't really feel like there was a purpose to Cell, but after seeing that, he kind of comes to like his own conclusion on what he wants to do. I like that, Toriyama. You did a good job with Cell, Toriyama. I'll tell you that right now. Oh, and I forgot the last character that we have to talk about. Hercule. Let's move on. Dynamite kick! Let me stop playing around too much because I might actually make my neighbors mad at me. Now let's go ahead and actually move on to the pros and cons section of this video right here. And as usual, my pros definitely overweigh my cons. But the first pro that we always have to go with is that Toriyama, when it comes to his art style, his paneling, some of the character designs, it's great. Like, Toriyama knows what he's doing when it comes to creating different characters, unique looking characters, and he knows how to choreograph fights within a manga. I gotta say that Toriyama, that boy be in his bag when he gets to drawing. Yes, sir. Second pro that we have to go with is that this arc feels a bit more grounded compared to the others, seeing as 99% of the events here happen on Earth. Another pro that I have is that I love the return of the Red Ribbon Army, making this world actually feel lived in and how Goku's actions also can have consequences. Fourth pro we have is that the androids are definitely a unique idea and antagonist for the Z Warriors, seeing as they have infinite energy and are insanely strong. Now, we know that at some point they actually get even with the androids, but it's just futile to fight them because their power doesn't really deplete. So to see that actually happen and to see the androids actually whoop up on the Z Warriors so early within the saga, ruthless, ruthless. I love it, Toriyama. Yes, sir. Fifth pro I have is Cell. While he's not the best villain, he does have an interesting design and creation, being an amalgamation of many of the strong warriors we've seen post-time skip. There is no other warrior really like this within Dragon Ball Z. The fact that he has like all the like traits and cells of like other characters like Frieza, some of the Saiyans, and just, you know, having the android capabilities as well. I just thought that as a villain, that was very interesting to take him in that direction. Another pro I have is that many cool power-ups and designs are in this arc. Like, let's go ahead and talk about all the forms of Cell. We also got to talk about Super Vegeta and Super Trunks, and the merging / transformation, I guess you could say, of Piccolo and Kami, which also created for a great power-up. That was actually established and hinted at in the Frieza arc. I gotta say that these power-ups, the designs, phenomenal. This arc also implements more comedy than the previous arc, with this feeling like the perfect blend for Akira Toriyama's style of action and comedy. One of my gripes, and it's not really a gripe, it's more of a nitpick of like what I feel like was missing from the Frieza saga, was that there was no comedy. But I feel like that actually fits the vibe of the Frieza arc because like there's a lot at stake right here. Like the whole universe is about to, you know, just be taken over by this tyrant that wants immortality. But then again, the whole universe is about to be taken over by Cell too. But I just feel like this is just a perfect blend of like some of the comedy and some of the action that Toriyama has built upon. And the comedy definitely does not overstay its welcome. I'm not saying like the comedy is like all throughout this arc, but it's you know, here and there in the arc, and when it is here and there, I actually do enjoy it, and it reminds me of some of the Dragon Ball comedy that we got previously. Also, another pro that I have to give Toriyama his props on is that Toriyama isn't afraid to drop the power level element, which could have severely held back the show and caused much unneeded info. We've seen it plenty of times of people saying the scouters and the power level reading and all that, it's hindering, and it could cause for a lot of confusion later on within the series, especially when it's been established early on. Well, it's like we don't even touch upon that anymore within the Saga. In fact, it's never ever referred to, and it's just funny because a lot of people always say like, oh, Toriyama forgot this and Toriyama forgot that. There's no point of including it if it really has no use, you get what I'm saying? Just like Launch has no use with fighting Cell in the Cell games, the Scouters and the power level readings, it really doesn't matter because these characters all can sense their own chi and can suppress their chi, which was a thing that a lot of the characters could not do in the Frieza arc. So Toriyama, you did good on this one as well. Second to last pro I have is that this arc feels different compared to the other arcs because of the more sci-fi elements like time travel and androids coming together to hurt our protagonist. Sounds familiar? Also, and we have the last pro, Hercule. It's peak Toriyama comedy. Hercule has me laughing my butt off every time I see him in a chapter. Oh my god. Hercule is amazing. Now with all my pros out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the cons. And I do not think that this Cell Saga is the perfect saga. I do have my cons with this saga, but overall, it really doesn't bring down the Cell Saga by a whole bunch. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that I did not like within the saga. First thing I want to talk about is that many things happen in this arc to where they are cool moments at the time, but pan out to not play a big role overall, like transformations. Like, let's really think about Kami and Piccolo merging. Yeah, it's like cool for one fight, but after that, it's really not useful at all. They really don't utilize Piccolo at all after that moment. We also have Trunks becoming Super Trunks essentially and being more powerful than Vegeta, but he doesn't even really fight in that form. Like, you know, Cell clowns him and that's about it. It really has no purpose. Like, yeah, you want to establish that Trunks is stronger than Vegeta, but that form really doesn't do anything. So the fact that you showed us, I get it. Like, you want to establish that Trunks is stronger than Vegeta, but it really didn't do anything for the whole arc itself. We also had the return of Frieza with his father King Cold, but in a mecha form. I did not like this ish at all. I feel like this devalued Frieza a bit as a villain, especially the way Trunks one-shots him. Note, this is the next battle right after Goku and Frieza's fight. It just felt cheap for Trunks to really come in here and just take out Frieza like that. Like, I get why, because you want to show another Super Saiyan being able to exist within this universe, I guess. And the fact that he one-shots Frieza, the villain that we was having problems with last arc, and this guy that we don't know, this other Saiyan that we don't know, literally just comes and just one-shots Frieza. I just felt like it devalued what Frieza did in the last arc. Now, the last arc, Frieza, go. But this whole Mecha Frieza and him using enhancements and him being half a robot, I didn't even like it as a design choice itself. I didn't like it. And then they brought up King Cold, which I was assuming, you know, might be a little bit lesser than Frieza himself, or a tad bit stronger, but Trunks one-shots him as well. It's just like wasted concepts / wasted potential right there. And like I said, it devalued Frieza to me. You could have literally left King Cold alive and just kept him for like Super or something. Like, I don't know. I didn't like it. And my last con is that Cell is a weaker villain compared to Frieza, with him being created to only want to fight overall. This is part of the simple nature of Akira Toriyama, but overall doesn't pose as a menacing threat outside of his goals like Frieza did. Like, when we got to Frieza, he felt scary. He felt menacing. Like, the characters in that arc were cowering to Frieza. In this arc, they're like, we just gotta train to beat Cell, and we just gotta do our best in doing what we gotta do. And Cell was literally only created to kill Goku, so yeah, like, Cell kills a lot of people, but that doesn't like really strike terror in me, because we all know that we can just bring all those characters back with the Dragon Balls. But that's if, you know, the Z Warriors don't die before that happens. But that's about it for my cons. Honestly, I didn't really have too many. Like I said, overall, I don't think that this saga is perfect, but it's pretty good for what it does. But now it is time to talk about my final verdict. Yes, sir. Overall, this arc is still a great arc for the Dragon Ball series and feels like a great send-off at the end for some characters. There were many new elements I enjoyed, like time traveling, androids, and the passing of the torch for someone else to save the world instead of Goku. This arc isn't without its flaws, but what shonen is it? This arc is the perfect blend of what Toriyama has crafted with the action-heavy content mixed with his comedy style, which was a bit absent from the previous saga itself. After all this, I have to give the Android/Cell saga an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, so look, I know you saw the title. Hear me out. I think the Majin Buu arc is the worst arc in all of Dragon Ball/Dragon Ball Z. And I have a reason for this. Well, I have multiple reasons for this. After actually rereading the whole saga, to me, it just really serves no purpose in the narrative of Dragon Ball/Dragon Ball Z at all. This is going to probably be the last Dragon Ball Z saga review, and oh my gosh, we made it. The ride is over. The journey is over. I've read all of Dragon Ball Z, and it was a very quick read. It was a very fun read, and I feel like I had to pay homage, you get what I'm saying, to Toriyama for the goated work that he has created with this series and has inspired from this series, you get what I'm saying? So, needless to say, I really don't like this arc. This arc to me serves no purpose within forwarding the narrative of some of these characters or progressing some of these characters. I feel like a lot of the characters' arcs were kind of done in the Cell Saga. A lot of things actually kind of finalized to me in the Cell Saga. This saga right here, it just feels very extra, very unneeded, or as I like to say, DLC. And if you don't know what DLC is, it's like added content to a game after the game is released, but it's not really necessary to actually enjoy the full game experience. To me, the base game of Dragon Ball Z is all of Dragon Ball, obviously, up to the Cell Saga. The Majin Buu arc, I just feel like it's a tacked on DLC mission, and it has some cool moments here and there, obviously, but overall, I don't really like it. Let's go ahead and review the Majin Buu saga. Let's go ahead and start off with the plot. It's been 7 years after the defeat of Cell and the death of Son Goku. The world has been at peace, and Gohan is now going to high school with regular people. One of the people he attends school with is Videl, the daughter of Hercule, who claimed to have defeated Cell. Videl finds Gohan suspicious and finds out who he really is and forces him to train her. She also blackmails him to join the Tenkaichi Budokai, the same tournament his father Goku has entered multiple times in his childhood. This leads for Goku to come back to Earth for 24 hours just like his grandpa Gohan did in Dragon Ball, to visit family and to enter the Tenkaichi Budokai just one more time. But sadly, the Z Warriors reunion at the Tenkaichi Budokai isn't all rainbows and sunshine when they realize something sinister and evil is brewing and plan to destroy the Earth. Now, I liked the Buu saga growing up, but after reading this and after seeing everything in Dragon Ball and actually looking at the writing and looking at some of the foreshadowing and looking at some things that were actually built up and led to in all the other arcs, I just look at the Majin Buu arc a bit differently now compared to all that other stuff, especially when growing up and, having this more analytical brain, you know what I'm saying? Because I be big braining when I be reading simple manga like this. But the Majin Buu arc isn't terrible by any means. I want to stress that enough. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not the best. But with the plot now out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the characters that have been introduced in this arc, starting with Videl. Videl is the daughter of Hercule. She's a great martial artist and forces Gohan to train her to fly and use her chi. Hercule, the man who claimed Cell's defeat by his hands. He is also seen as the world champion, and everybody respects him except for the Z Warriors. To everyone's surprise though, he really is the MVP of this arc. I ain't gonna cap to you. Next character we got up, and one of my personal favorites growing up, the Great Saiyan Man. This is Gohan's superhero alter ego for when he has to fight crime in the city, since he wants to keep his identity a secret. And sadly, after reading this arc, there's no point of Great Saiyan Man. He tries to keep his identity hidden, and his classmates still find out who he is. That's what a lot of things in this arc. There's really no point to it, because it literally just ends up doing nothing overall. The Supreme Kai, the Lord of Lords, he watches over the galaxy and has been searching for Babidi and his Jin, Majin Buu, because he knows they could bring great destruction to the galaxy. And we also have Kibito, his assistant. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the villains in this arc, like Babidi. Babidi, the son of Bibidi, he is a maniacal sorcerer who plans to bring destruction to the galaxy by summoning the Jin, Majin Buu. Majin Buu was created by Bibidi and is seen as the most terrifying force in the galaxy. His childlike nature isn't one to be toyed with and flattens our heroes left and right easily. Majin Buu, despite how he looks, that man is terrifying. Now, since we addressed some of the newer characters that actually matter to the saga, let's go ahead and talk about my pros and my cons. And this video is definitely going to be different compared to all my other Dragon Ball Z Saga reviews, because I have a lot of cons. Like, I have way more cons than I do pros, and I'll be spending a lot of time in the con section and the nitpick section. So let's go ahead and start off with what I liked about the Majin Buu saga. The tournament is very reminiscent of Dragon Ball, with a lot of comedy and some minor throwbacks, like self-aware manga jokes that sometimes break the fourth wall, or certain characters being introduced and being taken out easily, or Goku coming back for a day like Grandpa Gohan. I'm not gonna lie, especially reading through the whole series in one go, it kind of touched my heart to see that Goku comes back for 24 hours just like his Grandpa Gohan did for him. It's kind of weird to say that Goku came back for Gohan when Gohan came back for him. I don't know, I just really like that. It kind of touched my heart. And I feel like a lot of the beginning of the saga is a lot of throwbacks to Dragon Ball itself. Like, there was one panel when Great Saiyan Man is first introduced, but his name isn't said. And one of the bad guys is asking him like, oh my gosh, what is your name? And then the Great Saiyan Man, or Gohan, is like, I'll tell you in the next chapter. And then the next chapter says, now I will tell you my name. And I'm like, I like that type of stuff, especially starting off as a gag manga, and to see it kind of be thrown back into that realm a bit in this tournament, since the Tenkaichi Budokai is obviously reminiscent to all of Dragon Ball, since we really haven't had a Tenkaichi Budokai post time skip. So I don't know, I really like that. We also have the fight between Goku and Vegeta, which it's awesome. Like, the fight itself is awesome. The paneling, the choreography, it's dope. But then again, what action in Dragon Ball Z really isn't. Another pro that I have is narratively, this arc starts off different in the second half, with the main villain being introduced and thwarting all the good guys at the beginning. With the past two arcs, we weren't shown how strong the bad guy was until the third act, but in this saga, it happens towards the first and second act until he's defeated in the third. And I did like that change of pace, basically, when it came to this arc, because I wouldn't say that Dragon Ball Z is really formulaic, because it really isn't. I don't get why people think that, but this arc kind of makes it seem like that because it adds to that narrative that people try to push. But I did like the way that they kind of changed the way the story is generally told in this arc. Fourth pro I have is Majin Buu. Personality-wise, is different from all the other previous villains, with him having multiple personalities, different sides, and him being ruled by someone at first. We haven't seen no villain in Dragon Ball Z that really took orders from anyone but Majin Buu. And Majin Buu is the one person to really defy, you know, his leader or his person that kind of created him. Like, he didn't really create him, it was his father that created him. But he basically takes over the reins of him having complete autonomy over all the actions that he does. So I do like that. Majin Buu actually has a character arc in this saga, from him being a bad guy to a good guy. People be sleeping on that. People really be sleeping that Majin Buu kind of had a character arc in this, and it is thanks to one character, which is Hercule, the GOAT. It's true, it's true. It's funny to say, but it's true. Which leads to my next pro. Hercule is a great character in this arc, because without him in two pivotal moments, we wouldn't have been able to defeat Buu. I don't know why that just feels weird coming out my mouth. Pause. But it's true. Hercule started off as a gag character that literally was just a gag, and I enjoyed the gag in the Cell Saga, but to see him being a prominent character in the arc is very funny, especially when it comes to Majin Buu being the most powerful thing in the universe at this time, and Hercule being the weakest thing compared to him. So to see him, someone that's powerless, change Majin Buu, I really like that, Toriyama. Good job. And my last pro that I actually have to talk to you guys about is that I like a lot of things in this arc, and I think that they are very cool in concept. And I will explain that a bit more in my cons section, which means now it's time to actually go into the cons and the things that I did not like. Majin Buu Saga? You about to get it. My first con is that many concepts are style over substance, meaning they look cool, but they don't really accomplish or do anything of significance. Now hear me out. I know y'all are gonna argue me down, but I'll explain them all a bit more in the nitpicks. But let me give you some examples like Majin Vegeta. I know y'all are gonna argue me on this one, but hear me out in the nitpick section like I said earlier. We also have Super Saiyan 3. It accomplishes nothing but stalling. Fusion, which is also used to stall. Ultimate Gohan, which he is used to just power up Majin Buu. And the Z-Sword. Yeah. A lot of these things are built up throughout the arc to really not accomplish or be used to defeat Buu, but we invest so much of our time with these concepts, betting on at least one of them to defeat him. And to me, a lot of these concepts are disappointing. Yeah, it's cool things for like toys and video games, but overall, in terms of usefulness in the arc, didn't really do anything. My next con is that the build-up for Gotenks and Gohan have no real satisfying reward, seeing as how they don't accomplish anything but fighting Boo and dying afterwards. Literally everybody on Earth dies at one point, and it's sad to see these characters built up and us betting on them all, and they're not even in the last battle of the arc. Another con I have is that each villain in each arc had the same powers plus more from the villain of the previous arc. Like Cell having Frieza and the Saiyan cells to be able to replicate their moves, and Majin Buu is able to do the Kamehameha, regenerate like Cell, and has multiple transformations just like the previous two villains. I get it, the transformations and all that was probably a hit back then. We gotta remember this stuff came out in the 80s/90s, but the villains, especially after Frieza, they kind of start going downhill. I do like the dynamic between Cell, someone who loves to fight, and Gohan, someone who doesn't like to fight, but Majin Buu doesn't really have that antithesis, unless you want to count Hercule, I guess, but I just didn't really like it, especially since a lot of these characters are just like, oh, I'm the same villain as this villain, power-wise, I just have a different look, and I just have different personality. I don't know, I really didn't jive with that, especially with Majin Buu. Now, 2 times being done, okay, I can let it slide. But 3 times? All right, Toriyama, you're getting a little too far into that little repetitive bag. You kind of dipping your toe in the water, but you're not dipping your toe in the water. You putting your whole foot in there. And my last con is that Goku in this arc serves as someone who's supposed to be spectating with the expectation of staying dead and having already passed the torch. But sadly, Toriyama brings him back to life, making Goku the hero of this arc instead of going through with the characters that he previously built up. Now, I will say this. Goku is only the hero of one arc, which is the Frieza arc. After that, Gohan is our next hero. But sadly, Goku becomes the next hero after that, after he was supposed to be passing the torch to Gohan. He was building up Gohan, training Gohan to be the protector of the universe. And Gohan is literally the strongest character without fusion in Dragon Ball Z. But they still make Goku somewhat the hero. I get it. Like, it was Goku and Hercule and Vegeta. They all had a point in this actual fight. But Goku was the one that fired off the Genki Dama, aka the Spirit Bomb. Without him doing the Spirit Bomb, they wouldn't have survived. So I just wish that, they would have kept Goku out of this because he was supposed to be dead and stay dead. But somehow they tried to find some way to just bring him back to life. And I didn't really like that. Now it's time to go into my nitpick section of the video. And this is where I kind of go into detail about the things I didn't like. And I'm not going to go super into detail. We can have a discussion about this in the comment section down below. But let's go ahead and start off with my nitpicks, and let me go ahead and get into it. First off is when Babidi ship, Babidi comments on Vegeta's heart dripping with evil, when I feel he hasn't been evil since the Namek arc. It makes no sense, especially when it is said that Babidi is able to manipulate those with evil and greed in their heart. If they explained that they took advantage of the greed in Vegeta's heart, that would have made more sense. What? Second nitpick. Now, let's talk about Majin Vegeta. While I like the concept of it, there is no real build-up for this to actually happen. Vegeta isn't a bad guy anymore. He hasn't been since the Namek Saga, which is when he became an anti-hero. If Vegeta was a bad guy, he could have easily destroyed Earth while Goku was away for a year between the Frieza fight and Goku coming back from Yardrat. The emotional payoff just also wasn't enough when people think Vegeta was being selfless, but Vegeta has already fought for people in the Cell Saga when he saw Trunks get killed and lashed out in a blind rage to attack Cell, even though he knew he couldn't beat him. Also, Vegeta isn't supposed to fight anymore, because he saw when Goku died, he didn't have a point to fight anymore. So why is he still training before this arc even started? What? Now, third nitpick. Gohan having more hidden potential was something that came out of nowhere. Gohan was already the warrior to save the Earth in the last arc and was deemed the strongest. So to say randomly with no lead up that he has more hidden potential just doesn't make any sense. What? Next con, and I know a lot of you guys are going to hate me for this. Super Saiyan 3, as a transformation, is a waste since it doesn't really accomplish anything but stalling Majin Buu overall, whether that be with Goku or Gotenks, and it honestly has no emotional payoff compared to Super Saiyan 1 or Super Saiyan 2. Oh, what? Another nitpick, Goku's time on Earth being shortened because of Super Saiyan 3 makes sense, but when Piccolo offers for Dende to heal him, he says he can only heal in the afterlife. What? And lastly, the Z-Sword is something that Supreme Kai bets on for Gohan defeating Buu, but does nothing but summon the old Supreme Kai. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with this if we hadn't dedicated so much goddamn time to betting on the power of the Z-Sword itself to defeat Buu. What? You guys can see why I really don't like the Majin Buu arc. I hope you guys can see that. But now it's time to get into the final verdict and what I think about the Majin Buu arc. Overall, I feel the Majin Buu arc is the one thing that quote-unquote ruins Dragon Ball Z. Up to the Cell Saga, many things were consistent, foreshadowed, and led up to with the writing from previous arcs. Many things happen in the saga that really don't accomplish much or lead to an end, but I still enjoyed the saga overall. This saga feels way more like DLC to a video game rather than base content, but I get the appeal and love and many things in this saga. Not everything is bad, but in comparison to the other sagas, this saga definitely pales. I'm gonna have to give this saga a 5.5 out of 10. After all these reviews, it's finally time to give my final thoughts and final score on one of the most legendary manga and anime series of all time. And I have to give Dragon Ball Z an 8.5 out of 10. But when it goes to the actual GOATed status of Dragon Ball Z, I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. What's up, you guys? Dark Sage here, and I'm here to review. First off, with the pros, animation is great, comedy is great. Did I just stick up the middle finger? All the original voice actors are there. They even add more lore to Dragon Ball Z. Any more Dragon Ball Z is good to me. Bars. First off, Beerus, God of Destruction. The one person that could put the whooping on Goku, Vegeta, he could fight anybody without breaking a sweat. Obviously, this is a very, very powerful threat that should be continued within the Dragon Ball Z series. Or technically Dragon Ball Super, since that's the new anime, which I don't watch except for the Black Saga. But I'm not getting into that right now. We're talking about the movie, which is great. I mean, one, I'm a Dragon Ball Z fan. Two, I bought the Blu-ray. You're not gonna buy a Blu-ray for a movie that you really don't like, unless it's like something like Batman and Robin, which you just want to roast on. But that's a whole different story for a whole different video. What I love about this movie is it has all the favorite Dragon Ball Z characters. It has Oolong, Yamcha, Tien, Piccolo, Krillin, Goku. My fingers went all type of different ways right there. And they even add two new characters, Beerus and Whis. Who is Beerus? Beerus is the god of destruction in this sector or universe, a parallel dimension. And well, Whis is the guy that just keeps Beerus in check, basically. What Beerus does, he destroys planets when he's bored, basically. But when he comes to Earth, he sees all this food, so he gives Earth a chance, you know, until someone like Majin Buu makes him mad. Which makes for a great, great, great reason to fight everybody. Now, what are negatives about this movie? Not much, really. I mean, it's Dragon Ball Z. Everything you expect in Dragon Ball Z is here. Don't try and go to this movie and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna review this movie. No, you have to be a Dragon Ball Z fan to want to watch this movie, because why would you watch? This is at the end of Dragon Ball Z. This is after the Majin Buu saga, because one, Majin Buu is a good guy, so obviously this is gonna be at the end of Dragon Ball Z. I really had no issues with this because everything was justified in the movie. I had enough action to satisfy me because this guy is overpowered. You're not gonna come and try and make everybody fight this guy because he's overpowered. There's no point of fighting him. So what would I rate this movie? I don't really have a grading scale yet. So right now I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Really a 10 out of 10 because there's nothing wrong I see with this movie. It's funny. It has great action. It looks great. The only thing that was weird to me was the auras that was around Goku when he went Super Saiyan God. But I mean, that's passable, I guess. But not really a big gripe. There was nothing in this movie that took me out of the movie. This movie made me laugh. That's very, very rare to even make me laugh out loud. So I recommend seeing this movie if you're a big Dragon Ball Z fan. If you're not, don't go see it because what's the point of you seeing it? It's time we talk about it. We gotta talk about it on the channel. We have to talk about why I hate Dragon Ball Super. Okay, let me actually backtrack that. Why I hate Dragon Ball Super up to the Tournament of Power. Okay, I'm just playing. Let me go ahead backtrack that a little bit more. What I hate about Dragon Ball Super. Yes, this video title was clickbait, but I had to get you in here. That way you gonna watch the video. And this video isn't gonna be too much of an actual manga review itself, but I'm gonna be telling you more about the pros and the cons that I have with reading the Dragon Ball Super manga. Now, if you guys don't know, I am a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is probably one of the first animes I've ever watched in my lifetime besides Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, but come on. We all have Dragon Ball Z in a special place in our heart. So it's time for me to put the nostalgia aside and actually talk about the sequel series, the successor to Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. And this series was initially started by Toriyama with the Battle of Gods movie, which actually turned into the Resurrection of F movie right after that. Then it turned to Dragon Ball Super itself with the first two arcs going over those two movies, which a lot of people are kind of divisive about. I kind of am all right with it if you haven't watched the movies. But also, if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you have watched the movie. So I don't know. Let me know what you feel about the movies and the movies being adapted into the actual anime itself. Let me know in the comment section down below. But today I gotta talk to you guys about what I feel about the Dragon Ball Super manga up to the Tournament of Power. Now I have read a little bit past it, but if you guys do not know, recently I got hacked, and honestly during the time I got hacked, I read a bunch of Dragon Ball Super. If you don't know, Dragon Ball Super is a monthly series in Shonen Jump, and honestly, Dragon Ball Super compared to the anime, I can't honestly tell you which one I actually like more. There are things that I like more about the manga, but there's also things I like more about the anime itself. And there's also things that I dislike about the anime, but there's also things I dislike about the manga itself. So before we actually get into this video, if you are new to the channel, you have not already, go ahead, hit the like button, share this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that post notification bell. That way you know whenever I come out with newer and doper content. And if you want to debate me on any other type of social media, especially Twitch, where we actually do live debates on there, go ahead, check me out. All my social links will be in the description down below. So, let's get into it. Just gotta remind y'all that I am a huge Dragon Ball Super fan, and I actually support the series that I read. So, you know, I have all 9 volumes. I have all 9 volumes, with volume 9 actually looking the best out of all these 9 volumes. So, but yes, let's go ahead and talk about my pros and my cons. But you know I gotta start off with my pros because I can't give this series too much slack. But there are some things I do have to note that I actually do like about the series. And I'm hopefully gonna do another video on this channel where I actually tell you what I don't like about Dragon Ball Super as a whole rather than just the manga or just the anime version. I'm gonna tell you that as a whole, but in a different video. So this video will be going over the stuff that I dislike specifically about the manga and the stuff that I do like specifically about the manga itself. So let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with the pros first, I gotta talk about the utilization of Super Saiyan God more. Now in the manga, you actually see Super Saiyan God within each arc itself, and I gotta say that I do like that. While in the actual anime itself, the only time you see Super Saiyan God utilized is in Battle of Gods, where it's first introduced, and the Tournament of Power, and only Goku doing it, even though Vegeta knows how to do it, but he first does it in Dragon Ball Super Broly. At least that's when we first see it. But in the manga, you actually see Vegeta use Super Saiyan God, especially when he's actually using it as a tactical fighting defense. When he's fighting Goku Black, and he's literally like in Super Saiyan God mode, but then when he tries to punch him real hard or try to hit him real hard, he turns Super Saiyan Blue for an instant, and he goes right back to Super Saiyan God. I gotta say, I really do like the fact of Toyotaro actually using Super Saiyan God more than they actually use it in the anime, because in the anime it's like, oh, we established it in Battle of Gods, let's go ahead and drop it off. And I didn't like that. I thought Super Saiyan God looked a lot better than Super Saiyan Blue, which also doesn't sound as threatening. You get what I'm saying? But besides that, let's go ahead and go to the next point. Now, I'm not gonna lie, some of the stuff that was covered in the manga, I gotta say it was a bit better to read it rather than it actually just taking everything from the anime itself and just rehashing it all in the manga itself. There are some differences between the anime and the manga, which I actually do like. There's some specific instances. I won't actually spoil them, but I will probably put them in the description down below. That way you guys can actually look it up or look at the arcs, but I don't know how I'd be spoiling you if you already like, I don't know. You shouldn't be spoiled on Dragon Ball Super. If you really like Dragon Ball, you probably all watch Dragon Ball Super. So yeah, there are some differences that I actually do like that the manga takes compared to the actual anime itself. And I do like some of the execution that the manga has with some of the story beats rather than the actual anime version of it itself. And obviously, one of my main positives when it comes to actually reading the manga of Dragon Ball Super is that, well, it's actually much quicker than the anime version. The anime version is about 100 episodes and it goes up to the Tournament of Power arc, while in the manga, it's literally only 9 volumes and it goes up to like 40 chapters, I think. It's like 30 or 40 chapters. And honestly, that's not really that long, especially when the chapters are 40 pages and the series is not that wordy. There are some instances where it does get a little bit wordy, and I will talk about that later. But honestly, it's really not that wordy, and it was just such a quick breeze through. I literally got from the beginning, from Battle of Gods, all the way up to the Tournament of Power and finished it within a week. That's how quick it is to actually read the manga version of Dragon Ball Super. And I actually like that compared to the anime, where it took me a while to binge a lot of them episodes, and it was kind of stale. And another point that I like about Dragon Ball Super in the manga is that you don't need the anime to get the characters or get the character motivations. Now, obviously, the anime will flesh out more of the characters or flesh out more moments with the characters, but you really don't need the anime in order to get Dragon Ball Super. All you need is the knowledge of Dragon Ball Z. You can go to Dragon Ball Super in the manga, and you will completely get where everything is going, and you completely get the characters itself. It keeps all the key moments from the anime in the manga. There are some moments that change, which I do kind of miss, but it keeps all the super key moments that you need to know within the manga version itself. So I think that's pretty cool. And speaking on that point still, I feel like the manga version doesn't really spend time on pointless or needless side missions in order for me to get through the story. Like when Goku was trying to recruit everybody, like when he had the fight with Krillin and when he had the training moment with Gohan, even though I kind of like the training moment with Gohan, but the power scaling is still bad in Dragon Ball Super. those moments aren't really in the manga, and you really don't need those moments. You just know that Krillin was recruited and Gohan was recruited for the Tournament of Power. So I already feel like Dragon Ball Super, it kind of gets to the meat of everything. You get what I'm saying? I do like to get to the meat of everything. Don't take that out of context, please. And my last positive that I have for the series is that in the manga, Vegeta gets a lot more shine. Vegeta doesn't take as many L's as he did in Dragon Ball Super. When I was watching the anime of Dragon Ball Super, I just felt like they made him look like a clown. I just felt like that he had too many L's. He was taking too many L's. This is Vegeta, not Legeta. Get it? Because I switched the V to a. Either way, Vegeta doesn't take as many L's, and Vegeta actually looks like a better fighter within the manga version. Like I said, I like that version of Vegeta a lot more, but like I said, there are some instances in the manga that they don't include, like Super Saiyan Blue Evolution. Oh, that was such a moment I wish was in the manga, but it was not, and it was so sad to see that Vegeta couldn't go against Toppo in the Tournament of Power, but it's time to go to the negatives, because I gotta tell you why I hate Dragon Ball Super. NANI? Now, like I said earlier, many scenes from Dragon Ball Super are not included within the manga version, which I feel like are pivotal scenes or pivotal moments or scenes that should be included within the manga. Like Goku training with Gohan. I thought that was an awesome moment, or Piccolo gave that realization of Gohan of how he's too cocky, or how he gets over cocky when he gets an immense amount of power to himself. I love those scenes. I love the character developments. I love some of the character training moments. I love some of the character transformations. I love it. And the manga actually skips over a lot of that. The manga doesn't even have the Resurrection of F movie in it, which is kind of good because you don't want to rehash something, and most likely as a Dragon Ball Super fan you probably watched the movie, but it's still kind of confusing if you are a new fan of Dragon Ball Super and you're just coming into the series, and then you just look and see that they're going Super Saiyan Blue out of nowhere, and you don't see that they're training with Whis to actually get to that Super Saiyan Blue power, which is another issue I have with actual Resurrection of F, the movie itself. Either way, the manga does miss some key points, and there are moments where I'm like, dang, the anime was way better in this instance than the manga was itself. But the anime and the manga were written by two different people at the same time. Toriyama just gave them the points to get here and there. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, I understand the differences, but man, the anime definitely has some great moments that are missed within the manga. And I gotta say that Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, or when Goku and Frieza team up to fight Jiren, oh, those are some key moments that the manga doesn't have, and I hated it. But I loved it in the anime. But still though, Goku teaming up with Frieza, that's kind of messed up. Like his dad, Bardock, my favorite character, is probably rolling around in his grave just looking at that instance right there. Another negative that I have for the manga of Dragon Ball Super, and I know this is a little nitpicky, the grammar is off. Like the grammar is bad sometimes, or the spelling is incorrect. Like they did not, like, you know, y'all didn't run that. The editors didn't see that. I'm like, you know what? You need to actually fix that, or you need to add another letter to that word to make it that word. It was just weird to see grammatical errors or spelling errors within the manga after it's been through other editors, and people haven't talked about it. I don't know, this is a nitpick for me though. Now let me go ahead and tell you another negative that I had that kind of peeved me a little bit, a good amount when I was reading it. And I talked about it a bit on Twitter. Go ahead, follow me on Twitter if you aren't already. But the manga gets super wordy with exposition that honestly isn't really intriguing, or it's not really, you know, entertaining to actually read it all. Especially as someone who's already watched the anime, a lot of the exposition was just super heavy. It was a lot of talking. I'm like, yo, this is boring. And it's not bad to actually have some dialogue in between fights, obviously, but when it's not interesting dialogue, or when it's not entertaining dialogue, like for instance, Gowasu and Zamasu in the anime, those two characters talk, and they talk about the time rings, they talk about Earth's mortality and things like that, and I was just like, Gowasu, I don't like you. Zamasu, I don't like you either. So y'all two talking right now, and I get it, especially for the people who are just manga only. You got to explain this, but honestly, it was just taking up so much of the page. Barely any of the artwork was showing, and that's what I mean when I say that it was getting very exposition heavy. Barely anything was showing compared to those big speech bubbles that was in front of my face, and I was getting tired of reading. I'm reading Dragon Ball Z for Pete's sake. I need to see actions being flown through those manga panels. I don't want to see words. What am I reading? The light novel? No, I'm reading the Dragon Ball Super manga. What's wrong with them? But I get it. I forgive them a bit. If it wasn't for my next negative, which is the paneling. The paneling is bad. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. The paneling is bad, especially with it being the successor to Dragon Ball Z. Now, I know this isn't written by Akira Toriyama, the god of Dragon Ball and the god of shonen action. His paneling is fantastic. Toyotaru, I will say, you need a little work. I will say it did get a smidget better in the Tournament of Power, and it's actually a little bit better in the Moro arc as well. So I'm speaking, like I said, just up to the Tournament of Power arc, but the paneling, it just felt very clunky. It just felt like a lot was happening in those pages. And I'm not gonna lie, I do like when a good amount of stuff is happening within a monthly chapter, but still, it just felt like it was cramming everything in there. And I just felt like I was just moving super fast. I'm like, oh, there's just so much happening. It's not interesting. Not much is changing between each of these panels. You're just fleshing out or just giving more dialogue to some of these characters to give more exposition on some of the situations. And my last negative, and this one's a nitpick too, but if you're a manga fan, you kind of got to live with this one, and this is just the coloring. Now, you guys know, when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, the colors matter, and I know a lot of people made fun of the coloring when it came to Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, or as a lot of people like to say, Super Saiyan Blue, because it's, you know, it's just shorter. And a lot of people clowned it because, oh, they're turning red, they're turning blue, what are they going to turn next? Purple? And, well, they kind of already doing that. Too soon? I will say the manga just doesn't have that nice effect that the anime does have with the vibrant colors that comes from it when they go Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan Blue, especially when it comes to a character like Vegeta, where his hair stance never changes. Now, when Goku goes Super Saiyan, his hair literally changes, but Vegeta, his hair literally stays the same when he's Super Saiyan God, when he's Super Saiyan Blue, or when he's Super Saiyan. Now, you guys obviously know if they're going Super Saiyan, then, you know, they keep the hair white to kind of give it that blonde aesthetic. But when they go Super Saiyan Blue or God, it's a little bit harder to tell unless they have the aura around them. That's when you know they're Super Saiyan Blue. But if they're Super Saiyan God, the hair is just colored. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just shaded a bit, which is a little bit confusing, like I said, because there are some moments when they master the Super Saiyan Blue transformation and the aura is actually staying in them. It's not leaking out. So you never know if they're actually blue and using Super Saiyan Blue full power, or if they're Super Saiyan God, because the shading just looks a little bit the same for each of those transformations itself. But I will say that the anime had some nice coloring. It really had some nice line work and coloring when the Tournament of Power came around, but I think it changed directors around that time. So, like I said, that's a pro for the anime, and that's a negative for the manga. And guys, that's about it for my pros and cons when it comes to the Dragon Ball Super manga. Now, I'm still reading it, and you guys know that I am a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z, so I'll definitely give you an update on the arcs that I do read, like the Moro arc and the Granola arc, but those will be separate videos on their own. And I want to do this video as like a test run video, because you guys know that I got to get into Boruto's behind. Pause. But you guys know that I gotta get onto the Boruto manga, because if I gotta go over this monthly series, I had to put my biases aside for a little bit for this one. I gotta get on the Boruto manga, because you guys know that I actually kind of am caught up. I read 61 chapters of the Boruto manga, and I gave you guys my opinion in the last reading log, but I do want to do a video of the roast of Boruto, because we gotta talk about why I don't like Boruto, and I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth, not too in depth, because then that'll be like a 40 or 30 minute long video, and you guys don't want to sit there and just see me crap on Boruto. You actually might want to see me crap on Boruto that much. I've done that plenty of times on my Twitch stream. You can check that out on my second channel, or actually go on my Twitch playbacks and on my Twitch channel. I only reviewed up to the Tournament of Power, but I actually read and caught up physically to the manga that we're at right now in Dragon Ball Super currently. And up to the manga where we're at right now, we're in the middle of the Moro arc, towards the end of the Moro arc, but I actually read a little bit past that because I just wanted to finish out the Moro arc. So let me go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about the Moro arc. I gotta say that honestly, this has got to be the best super arc that I have read up to so far. I have not read any of the Granola stuff because I like to read the arcs while they're all completed. Because when I read an arc that's not completed and I gotta keep coming back to it, I start forgetting the little details. But while I was reading it all the way through, and I don't have to go through that monthly grind. That monthly grind is horrible. But while I was reading the Moro arc, I'm like, man, this is really good. It really had me flipping the pages. Like, it had me turning the pages really quickly. And I really love the villain of Moro. While he's not the most original villain, I gotta say that his power of being able to absorb energy and using what Goku and Vegeta have worked so hard for against them was a good turn on its head, because I really didn't expect that. I didn't even know what Moro's power was. But all I saw about Moro before I actually started reading the actual arc itself was that he begins to kind of do the Cell thing. Like, when Cell was transforming, he began to look better and look less like a bug. I actually like Moro's original design, but when he started transforming, he started looking a bit more like Cell, and it gave me that Cell vibe. Like, this arc right here gave me a lot of Cell vibes. And I gotta say that this arc, like I said earlier, it's not the most original arc in Dragon Ball Super, obviously, because there's just so much stuff in Dragon Ball Z that laid a lot of groundwork for Dragon Ball Super. But like I said, this is probably the most fun I've had with an arc in Dragon Ball Super, besides Battle of Gods. But if I'm not counting the movie, then yes, Dragon Ball Super, the Moro arc, is the best one, especially with the world building and how they actually build on the world with using the Galactic Patrolman. And my boy Jaco makes a return, which we'll be talking about the Jaco manga in this video as well. But my boy Jaco making a return, I gotta say, that was a great treat for Toyotaro to give. And I know this is Toyotaro's actual first arc that he has written himself, and I can see what you could do when you do it on your own. When you're going off of Toriyama's, you know, cliff notes, yeah, I don't really like that. But when you're actually going off your own thing, I actually do really like that. But Toyotaro, big ups to you, because I really like where this arc was going, and I like where the end of this arc, in the Moro arc, actually leads to in the next arc, the Granola arc. So I won't be talking about the Granola arc. I won't be talking about any spoilers on the Moro arc. If you do want a dedicated video for the Moro arc, though, let me know in the description down below. But the Moro arc, honestly, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. While they did do the thing where, oh, we gotta wait for Goku to come to save us, like they did in the Saiyan arc when Nappa was killing everybody. There's just a lot of things in that arc. And I think I need to do a why I hate the Moro arc, or the problem with the Moro arc. That way it can help, you know, get the clicks and the views and all that. But I really think I do have to do a video on it to kind of express all of my feelings towards the Moro arc. Because while I did enjoy it, there really were things that were keeping it back from being a perfect Dragon Ball arc itself. So yeah, Moro arc, overall, it's good. I really love it. I enjoy it. I cannot wait to see where the Granola arc goes. So let me know in the comment section if you have actually read the Moro arc, or if you actually like the Moro arc, or if you just waiting for it to get animated. I'm not sure if it's even going to get animated at this point. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be in the anime itself, because I think the anime and the manga might be going two different routes. I don't know. You tell me though. I just got out the theater from watching Dragon Ball Superhero. When I first heard that title, I really wasn't feeling it at first, but now actually seeing the movie and seeing what that title actually kind of represents, I could dig it. So let's go ahead and talk about the review. But first, I want to talk about my initial expectations when going into this movie, or my initial thoughts before I went to go see this movie. Because I remember when the first trailer dropped and the whole movie was going to be CGI. I was not hyped for this. I was not ready for this. I did not think that this was actually going to be a success or good. But honestly, after watching the movie, it was pretty good. I think that this moving forward, yeah, so you thought I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say this moving forward, we should keep the CGI look. No. This actually fits the actual aesthetic for what the movie was going for, and I didn't think that I was gonna like CGI. I'm one of those type of people that usually when it comes to my anime, I don't really like to look at CGI. I don't even like to look at CGI for any of the small fight scenes. Like when it was included in Resurrection F or Broly, I thought it was alright, but I didn't think it was great. It kind of looks like a video game graphic to me. And with this movie, the CGI looks a little bit like the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot game. If you guys have played that game, you know what I'm talking about. It kind of looks like those graphics when it comes to the CGI. But honestly, it wasn't too jarring for me after a while when watching this movie. And I didn't know what the premise was really going into this movie, but sadly, Japan had some posters spoiling certain things happening in the movie, but I won't spoil you guys in this review right here. I'll do a spoiler talk later on in the review. I just don't know why they use these certain things to actually promote the movie, when I feel like if you would have went into it, it would have been a dope surprise. But also, you probably would have seen it coming either way. But before we actually get into a review, before I actually talk about the plot, some of the newer characters introduced, and some of my pros and cons, I'm gonna have to say, if you guys are not already, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and hit that post notification bell. Also, like the video if you haven't already. Follow me on all my other social media platforms. All my links will be in the description down below. So, let's go ahead and talk about Dragon Ball Superheroes, which I want to preface this right now. This is my favorite Dragon Ball Z/Super movie. Now, I know that's a pretty big role to give this movie, and I might have recency bias. I'm not gonna cap. I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, so I also will be biased towards this movie as well. But honestly, this movie gave me stuff that I didn't know I wanted/needed. You get what I'm saying? But before we actually talk about this movie fully, timestamps will be included in the description down below. So if you actually want to see me talk about the plot, some of the newer characters, my pros and cons, and some of the spoiler talk, we're going to be doing a little bit of a spoiler talk at the end. So make sure you tune in to the video all the way. That way you catch those little tidbits. But if you haven't seen the movie yet, watch the movie, then you come back for the spoiler parts, and make sure you rewatch the whole video again. That way you can help run the watch time up on this bad boy. But let's go ahead and talk about the plot of this movie and what it's about. And I'm not going to spoil you guys too much. In fact, actually, I'm not going to spoil you guys at all. I don't even know why I said that. I'm not going to spoil you guys at all. I'm going to give you guys the premise that I knew of when going into this movie, because I didn't want any type of expectations or spoilers when going into this movie, because I just wanted to sit there and enjoy it and just have my mind blown with the animation, the action, and some of the plot. And I'm not going to say that Dragon Ball Super or Z is going to have the most in-depth plot when it comes to storytelling, but it's serviceable and I really enjoy it for what it is. So let me go ahead and give you the plot that was actually put on IMDb, so that way I'm not actually telling you things that you might not know going into the movie. The plot is basically about the Red Ribbon Army from Goku's past having returned with 2 new androids to challenge him and his friends. Like I said, that's all I'm going to tell you. That's all I knew going into this movie, and it's a pretty good plot for what Dragon Ball Z is. Now, I know we are touching Red Ribbon Army territory again like we did in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and now we're doing it in Dragon Ball Super. But you know what? The Red Ribbon Army is here to stay, and I'm for it. These are the most persistent group of villains I've ever seen in anime, besides Team Rocket, obviously. Team Rocket, they just don't know when to stop. But besides all that, let's go ahead and talk about some of the newer characters introduced in this movie. Starting off with Magenta, Commander Red's son. Get it? Because Commander Red, the color red, and then Magenta, the color magenta. I liked it. I don't care what y'all think. I really liked it. We also have the character of Dr. Hilo, the grandson of Dr. Zero, and the 2 poster characters for this movie, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Androids created by Dr. Hilo, and I have to say I love Gamma 2. He definitely has to be the standout out of all the new characters introduced. I love Gamma 2. He was pretty good in this movie, and man, I need a figure of Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Sadly, Gamma 1 didn't really do anything or do really much for me in this movie, but Gamma 2, I think he might make up for that balance right there. And since this movie is a few years after the Broly incident, some of the characters we know and love have gotten a bit older, like Trunks, Goten, and Pan, who is now being trained by Piccolo. I think opening this movie with a scene like that was kind of near and dear. It hit me in the heartstrings right here. I loved seeing Pan get trained by her father's mentor. All you gotta do is get her in the robes, just like Gohan and Piccolo. I'm just saying, Toriyama, you can take that idea from me if you want, but I would do that if I was you. And that's about it for the actual new characters introduced. Now it's time for me to give you my pros and my cons, and I'm not going to take too long on this part because honestly, I don't want to set your expectations too high, but for a Dragon Ball Super / Z franchise movie, I really did love this movie. So let's go ahead and go into some of the pros. And my first pro has to be, this movie isn't the typical small story, fight for the rest of the structure. This movie is paced well and evenly balanced with fights here and there, spread out with some great character adventuring moments here and there. Actually having the main focus, not just being on the fight primarily for this movie, it was a very fun and enjoyable ride. Oh my gosh, this is such a good fresh air for the actual series. This gave me a bit of Dragon Ball vibes, I would say that, where, you know, you do a little bit of adventuring, you do a little back and forth with some of the characters, some of the main characters that you actually follow, and then you have the big fight at the end, which all anime actually has that if it's a shonen action. You get what I'm saying. My second pro has to be Toriyama's style shines through this with his comedy and satire for some of the usual things we have come to know and love about the franchise. Toriyama's one of my favorite mangakas, so to see him do what he did in this movie, and I'm not gonna say that it's outstanding, it blew me away. It's Toriyama. If you don't like Dragon Ball Z or Super, you're not gonna like it. I will say that his comedy could be a bit corny sometimes, but I fully enjoy it. I was laughing my butt off at some scenes in this movie. Third pro, the fact that they took a chance and let Goku and Vegeta take a seat from being the main stars of this movie. Yes. I never thought I'd see the day, with this movie primarily focusing on Piccolo as the main character, with Gohan taking the lead at times. It was like a fresh breath of air I never knew I needed or wanted. Trust me, when you watch this movie, I'm not gonna say, like I said, it's gonna just stray from the huge Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super narrative or story plot lines. It's not gonna stray too far from that. But to actually not have Goku and Vegeta be the main characters of this movie, in fact, they're barely in this movie. The most screen time they probably have is maybe 10 to 15 minutes max, and this movie runs for about an hour and 40. And this movie was good. And my last pro has to be the fight scenes, fight choreography, and the CGI. The fights look great in the CGI animation with great action tied with it. There were even some jaw-dropping moments, and the use of CGI, even in some of the non-fighting scenes, looked pretty good. I'm not a fan of CGI, like I said, but in this movie, it won me over. It showed me that CGI can be done well. I don't want this all the time, I'm not saying that, but I will say that in this movie, it was done really well, and I really liked it. I don't want to see any other movies of Dragon Ball Z with the CGI style. I know they're going to incorporate CGI here and there, but I don't think I want to see everything fully CGI. I kind of like where these new Dragon Ball Super movies are going with the different animation styles compared to the actual anime, with Dragon Ball Super having that Toyotaro look. Not Toyotaro, but the actual director, I forgot his name, but I'll put it on the screen, where it had that hand-drawn design, I really love that. And this whole CGI design for this movie, I really love that. I just think that with Dragon Ball Super, the doors have been open with different interpretations of the animation styles, and I really, really did enjoy that. But now it's time for me to stop riding the hype. And now it's time for me to tell you some of the cons I had with this movie, which there aren't really many, so don't hold your breath. You can hold your breath for this one. The animation took a bit to get used to. After the initial setup for the plot of this movie, I was used to the CGI, but this is one thing that scared me the most about this movie. Second con, some things are rehashed elements used from previous arcs and sagas from the franchise as a whole, and some of the new forms. We're not gonna really talk about the new forms right here. We're actually gonna get into that in the spoiler talk, but I wasn't feeling 2 out of 3 of them. 2 out of 3, I was not feeling the newer forms that were introduced to this movie. But now it's time for me to go ahead and give you guys my final verdict. Like I said, I didn't have that many cons. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. Really, with my cons, I'm kind of nitpicking because I honestly enjoyed everything throughout this whole movie. So let me go ahead and tell you my final score before we actually get into the spoiler talk. Overall, I had a great time and enjoyed myself in this movie. It gave me new elements I never thought I'd see mixed in with some very familiar elements. I'm gonna have to give this movie a rating of either buy it on Blu-ray or see it in theaters while it is there. Please support this movie, guys. I am loving the trend of these Dragon Ball Z / Super movies coming into theaters, me actually going to go see them and having the ride of my life. Pause, having the ride of my life in that theater seat and just watching Dragon Ball Z on the big screen. What more can you ask for in life? You tell me. But now that we talked about my final verdict, and now that we got some of my non-spoiler takes and views out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some spoiler talk. And my first spoiler has to be Piccolo getting a new form. It's something we needed to help put him on par with the rest of the main cast, and him fitting in with the theme of a new color transformation isn't too jarring. Overall, I liked it. Second spoiler, Cell as the main bad guy. I'm glad they didn't make him the same Cell we knew from the Cell Saga, but to rehash an old villain like Resurrection F was kind of to me. I get the point, but I didn't really like it. And last spoiler has to be Beast Gohan or Bestial Gohan. I don't know what his name is. I did not like this transformation at all. To me, it wasn't earned compared to other transformations, and it didn't have a good design. It falls into the stereotypical Dragon Ball hater joke of the hair just gets taller and more pointy when they transform. And he also had a different color hair. I just don't know how to actually scale or compare Gohan to others. Is this Gaki or not? Now we're probably going to be talking about my favorite thing that I have read through this whole manga reading log, and it has to be Jaco the Galactic Patrolman. The prequel, kind of, to Dragon Ball itself. And I didn't know that until we got to the last few chapters of Jaco the Patrolman, which actually this volume right here includes Dragon Ball Minus, which is a part that's in Dragon Ball Super, the Broly movie, where you see Bardock and his wife actually send off Goku to Earth. Now this honestly right here, I enjoyed this. Akira Toriyama was in that bag when he was making this bad boy. This is probably the most fun I've had with the manga series so far. And honestly, one volume, Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, it didn't overstay its welcome. Jaco is a well-established character within this manga series as well. And I like that it kind of explains how Bulma actually knows Jaco. Because when you go into Resurrection of F, you just know that Bulma knows Jaco. And we're like, who is this? Who is this guy? But this actually kind of gives you a little context behind it right here. And Jaco, big goat energy. The elite Galactic Patrolman, as I might say. Like I said, Akira Toriyama's comedic timing in this manga is fantastic. His paneling in this manga is fantastic. Some of his meta jokes in here is fantastic. Everything about Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, fantastic. I give it a 9 out of 10 for what it is. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing I've ever read, but this was really fun. It really kept me turning the pages. And honestly, I just love Jaco as a character itself, especially when I was reading the Moro arc. And Jaco was in there, and he was hilarious in that. So I was like, yo, I gotta get this. And I remember seeing this everywhere when I was younger and I wasn't collecting manga. And then it's out of stock everywhere, and everywhere I go, it's like yellow. So yeah. But yeah, I had to get this bad boy, especially for my Akira Toriyama shelf. Well, not shelf. My Akira Toriyama collection, I guess. But yeah, had to get it. Now, this makes me want to read Dr. Slump. I really want to see where Dr. Slump really goes. I literally know it's comedy-based, but still. If this is comedy-based, it has a little bit of action in it, I think I'm going to enjoy Dr. Slump. And I just enjoy Akira Toriyama's comedy in general. Jaco, I highly recommend it. It is available on the Shonen Jump app, but you don't get the 2 bonus chapters that are in the actual physical manga itself on the Shonen Jump app. So, fair warning. Now, if you guys know me, or if you've been on the channel for a while, you guys know that, well, I'm a big Dragon Ball / Dragon Ball Z fan / stan. And obviously the creator of Dragon Ball, well, he's a really well-known mangaka within the industry. And he's had some other series as well that I've been reading that are available in the English format as well, such as Sandland, about some devils and humans trying to find a source of water because, well, they live in the desert and somehow it's all dried up. There's no rain coming and they got to team up in order to find the source of water and bring it back to their people to stay living. You get what I'm saying? And certain things like this from Akira Toriyama, he excels in adventure / comedy series. Now, Dragon Ball Z, contrary to popular belief, was a super one-off thing compared to what Akira Toriyama usually does for his style. He usually does gag, adventure, comedy manga right there. Dragon Ball Z is definitely out of his wheelhouse, which was very successful, so I'm not gonna say it was a failure or anything like that, but it's definitely something different compared to all the other series that he's written before, like Sandland. And Sandland is a very enjoyable read. There is an anime coming out for it soon, and honestly, it's mid. It's mid. I'm not gonna lie and say that it's the greatest thing I've ever read. I really enjoyed Sandland. I had a really fun time with it. It's only 1 volume's worth of content, and that's the one thing I like about Akira Toriyama series, that you have a series like Sandland, or you have a series like Cowa that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, where it's basically just 1 volume. You get the whole story right here and you're good. You don't have to talk about it anymore. Or like Jaco the Patrolman. We talked about Jaco on this channel. I think that Jaco is a dang near 9 out of 10 / 10 out of 10 for Akira Toriyama. I don't want people to think coming out this video that, you know, I just think that Jaco is a 10 out of 10 on every single board when it comes to just grading a manga. No. For Akira Toriyama style, I consider Jaco a 9 out of 10. And these series right here for Akira Toriyama style as well, I give this about 6 / 7 out of 10. And we also have Cowa right here about this little boy monster that's trying to save his whole village of monsters because they get some monster flu, which ends up killing the monsters. He has to team up with this serial killer or this murderer that's randomly moved into his city, which is a human, obviously. He has to team up with him in order to get this cure way out in the mountains, but obviously he can't go by himself because he's a little boy, so he has to have some adult supervision. Series like Cowa and Sandland are very similar in nature, but I gotta say that I really enjoy them. If you like Akira Toriyama style, and if you like the style of Dragon Ball and what that kind of is in the pre-World Tournament Saga type stuff, you'll definitely enjoy some of Akira Toriyama's works right here. And the last Akira Toriyama work that I want to actually talk about is the Manga Theater right here, which is just a bunch of short stories made by Akira Toriyama, which are some are hit, some are miss, and some are you get what I'm saying? I really like the Manga Theater because it gives you a good variety of what Akira Toriyama style really is compared to series like Dragon Ball, Cowa, and Sandland, and Dr. Slump. Obviously his art style is very recognizable, and his gag and his comedy style is very noticeable as well after you read a series like this. And I gotta say that I really enjoyed my read with this. It did take me a while. You saw how thick that volume was. There is a lot of chapters in that bad boy, so it's gonna take you a while to get through it, and I'm not gonna lie, some chapters they drag more than some of the others, but some are just really good. And there'd be some where I had this like really gritty adventure looking thing and it'd only be like 2 pages. I'm like, Akira, I know you want to itch that Dragon Ball Z itch. I know you have it. Go ahead and just fully explore that right there. I saw one where I was like, oh my gosh, the artwork, the page, the paneling. What are we doing right here, Akira Toriyama? What are we doing right here, Akira Toriyama? What are we doing? Come on, continue that. Don't continue this little story about this boy that's trying to learn how to go on a date. I get it. It's cool for his style, but some story just went on a little longer than I would have really liked it to. So yeah, Akira Toriyama, the GOAT of manga. You get what I'm saying? The GOAT of gag / comedy manga right here. So with Sandland, Cowa, and the Manga Theater, all I have to read is Dr. Slump, and I've read every single thing that Akira Toriyama has released in English. And Dr. Slump has been severely out of stock for a long while, so pray for my wallet and pray for me to have the patience to actually find all of Dr. Slump. I just want to end this video out by saying thank you, Akira Toriyama.